have some amazing questions for you. What is death? Are you greater than your physical body and your human personality? Do we have soul groups that we incarnate with during different lifetimes? These are just a few of the questions posed to 60 spiritual thought leaders by Peter Alessandria, the producer of the amazing enlightening documentary Every Soul Knows. During this interview, you're going to meet Peter and some of the amazing people interviewed and hear some of their stunning spiritual insights. And full disclosure, I'm one of those thought leaders interviewed by producer Peter Alessandria for this fascinating, remarkable documentary. Don't miss this fabulous interview. And I sincerely mean that from my heart. Many blessings.
Hi there, and welcome to the Grief and Rebirth Podcast. I'm your host, author and trauma survivor Irene Weinberg, here to encourage you wherever you are in your healing journey. In each episode, I chat with incredible grief and trauma specialists, healers, mediums, and celebs, as well as remarkable people who have inspiring healing stories to share. If you're looking for a podcast that's both uplifting and inspiring, you've found it. Let us help you find your joy in life.
Hi, everyone. I hope this finds each of you so very well. I'm speaking to you from my studio in West Orange, New Jersey, and I could not be more delighted to have this opportunity to introduce you to a groundbreaking documentary titled Every Soul Knows, which explores the idea that who we really are is so much greater than our physical bodies and our human personalities. Every Soul Knows presents stunning insights from interviews with more than 60 thought leaders in the fields of near-death experiences, mediumship, channeling, and psychic and other spiritually transformative experiences, bringing to light the many ways understanding our eternal spiritual nature can enhance our lives while we are still in our physical bodies. I'm one of the 60 thought leaders interviewed in Every Soul Knows, and I could not be more excited to have Peter Alessandria, the producer of Every Soul Knows, and 3 of the outstanding thought leaders who happen to be my fellow New Jersey girls here with me today. It is truly my pleasure to introduce you to Karen Noe, Silvia Rossi, and Seta Araz Shahinian. And by the way, Seta actually channeled the name of this podcast, Grief and Rebirth, to me. Karen, Silvia, and Seta will each share some of the remarkable insights expressed in the documentary with all of you and more. I'm going to begin this very, very special interview by telling you about thought leader and renowned psychic medium, spiritual counselor, and healer, Karen Noe. Karen is the author of We Consciousness, Your Life After Their Death, the Angel Quest Oracle Deck, Through the Eyes of Another, and The Rainbow Follows the Storm. She has taught workshops at the Omega Institute, the Association of Research and Enlightenment, the Open Center, I Can Do It events across the country, and she also recently finished a very successful online masterclass for Humanities team with Serena and Sage Dyer about life after death. Karen is the founder of the Angel Quest Center in Waldwick, New Jersey, where she teaches classes, gives readings, and practices alternative healing. You can listen to Karen on the Angel Quest Show on all podcast platforms. Thought leader Silvia Rossi has been a medium for the last 28 years. She hosted her own podcast, Make Contact with Silvia Rossi, and she has appeared in numerous TV and radio shows. Silvia was honored to work alongside the families and support groups of victims of the September 11th tragedy. And over the years, she has garnered a loyal and ever-growing clientele and following in the United States and internationally. Her mission is to help individuals and families understand their eternal connection to loved ones who have passed on, bringing relief and comfort to the very many who have been touched by her gift. She maintains a working relationship with psychologists who refer her mediumship services to their patients to assist in the grieving process, and she conducts her practice out of offices in New York City and New Jersey. Thought leader Seta Araz Shahinian is a unique energy and faith healer, as well as an alternative care practitioner. She has channeled a number of healing modalities, including two hands to heal, and in addition, utilizes many other modalities to address various ailments of the mind, body, and soul. In addition to a business degree from Stern at NYU and a formal education in homeopathy and other healing modalities, Seta is a gifted channel and teacher. She offers many prayers and webinars for individuals as well as the planet as a whole on her website, ehealings.com. Peter Alessandria is the inspired producer of Every Soul Knows. Peter, who is a completely self-taught creative person, is an award-winning photographer, filmmaker, author, TEDx speaker, and former entertainment attorney based in the New York City area. He has won more than 75 awards for his photography, and in 2021, he published his first personal empowerment book entitled Be Bigger Than You Think You Are, Overcoming Our Self-Imposed Limits to Have the Life We Want. His passion for filmmaking has Peter producing several spiritually themed movies with the goal to help each of us remember who we really are. There is no doubt in my mind, and in the minds of those who have already viewed the premiere showings of Every Soul Knows, that Peter is brilliantly accomplishing his goal. Not only am I looking forward to talking with Peter about how he became inspired to create Every Soul Knows, what he hopes to accomplish with the insights-filled messages in the movie, and its path so far, and its path to come, I am eager to garner answers to some of the eye-opening questions Peter asks in the film from Karen, Silvia, and Seta for what is about to become an incredibly fascinating, enlightening, and transformative interview that will begin to reveal to each of our esteemed and precious Grief and Rebirth podcast listeners Every Soul Knows. Hello, my friends, Peter, Karen, Silvia, and Seta. A warm, heartfelt welcome to Grief and Rebirth Podcast.
Thank you, Irene.
Thank you.
Thanks, Irene. Great to be here.
It's so great. So my pleasure. Peter, you're up with my first two questions. I'd really like to know what inspired you to create Every Soul Knows. Please share your journey creating it. And what are you hoping to accomplish with the insights-filled messages in the documentary?
Well, thank you. Thanks for this opportunity, Irene, and all your support. I would not have met Silvia or Seta without you. You were very kind to introduce me to some of the folks, especially those here in New Jersey. So I'm grateful for that. And, I started on this journey 30 years ago. So I'm a seeker without even knowing what I was seeking or why I was seeking it. And my life has been an unfolding of this quest to know more. A lot of it, I think, was motivated just to kind of alleviate some of the suffering in my life and to learn how to have better relationships, how to have a better relationship with myself, and to understand some of the bigger questions. So I've been reading and studying, informally, but I've been really immersing myself in spiritual literature, spiritual material, spiritual retreats for 30 years, literally. This particular film came out of, it's hard to say exactly, it was probably around 2019. I had read a novel, and it was called, the novel is called Adventures in the Afterlife. And this was written by William Buhlman, and it's all about this person's journey through the afterlife. And even though it was written as a novel, it was based on William's actual experiences. He teaches out-of-body experiences. He's a kind of a mystic, great guy. And that was kind of a turning point for me. Up until that point, I had thought about the afterlife. I thought about the near-death experience and other spiritually transformative experiences. But for some reason, this really hit home. Right after that, my dad passed. And then right after that, the pandemic hit. And I eventually reached out to William, and I ended up optioning his novel And that's one of the projects I want to turn into a feature film. And so while I was writing the screenplay for that film, I started doing some research. And like many people during the pandemic, I had a lot of time on my hands. So I ended up on YouTube watching a lot of near-death experience interviews. And that was about the time I think I met you, Irene. Again, this was probably mid-2020. Mm-hmm. And I started reaching out to people that I was seeing their interviews, and a lot of them got back to me, and we started having these conversations and these dialogues. And at some point in 2022, maybe, the idea just came to me. You know, I was literally making breakfast one day. I was waiting for the toast to pop, and I had a Zoom with one of these people, Christian Sundberg, who's in the film, who is somebody I'd seen his interviews on YouTube. And I had a Zoom set up with him that afternoon, and when the toast popped, the idea popped into my head, which was that I needed to make a documentary about all this.
Oh, wow.
And that started the process. And I just started reaching out to people like you guys and other people. And people started saying yes. And then I was like, oh, shit, I really got to do this. And I started to have to figure out the logistics and how I wanted it to look and all of that. Many of the interviews were filmed right here. You guys know my little house here in Dover, New Jersey. That's my dining room. And it's been up for 2 years. You know, all of that stuff's been up there for 2 years now. And, you know, it's just been a magical experience. I mean, this whole thing has changed my life in ways I could have never imagined. The other thing that happened in the middle of all this is my younger brother passed away unexpectedly. I was actually with Seta when the news came in, when my sister called me. I wasn't even going to answer the phone, and Seta said, you should really answer your phone. And, you know, that became an integral part of all of this. My brother's passing, I can see now. I firmly believe that was part of our soul's journey, our soul's plan together. The film is dedicated to him, which is a little ironic because he was not a believer in the afterlife. He was a very hardcore kind of New York guy, and I actually went to visit him a couple of weeks before he died. I went to see him for the first time in 2 years. I was sitting in his living room. I was watching an NDE interview on YouTube on my tablet, and he overheard it, and he just kind of looked at me and said, you don't really believe all that stuff, do you? And I didn't know. It kind of came out of left field. I wasn't sure what to say. But that was his whole attitude about all this. And then since then, he's come through. He's a part of this project. You know, I feel his presence. He's financing, which is the biggest, you know, irony for me. You know, he's financing part of the film, and it's dedicated to him, and it's a celebration. You know, and the key thing that came out of that experience was I really had to decide how much I believed all this stuff, right? Because I kind of had this feeling, you know, I'm not an experiencer. I haven't had a near-death experience. I haven't even really had what I could call a spiritually transformative experience, not in one fell swoop. I don't hear voices. I don't see beings. But I kind of knew, you know, I kind of felt like that was the truth. But when he passed, you know, first thing was I chose to allow myself to have the grief. It was the saddest thing that ever happened to me, right? I mean, I just felt it was unbelievable how sad and how grief-stricken I was, along with the rest of my family. And then there really came a point where I didn't want to continue with the film. I didn't want to continue with anything. You know, I was just so despondent over the whole thing. And then I started watching some of the, eventually I kind of calmed down a little bit. I started watching some of the interviews that I had conducted that I hadn't edited yet. And slowly it was by getting back into the film and working on it that it kind of brought me out of the sadness. It brought me out of the grief. And I really came to a point where I said, you know, this is the truth. This is my truth, at least. You know, we are eternal spiritual beings. There is no death. We're not our bodies. And we're eternal beings that were created by love, as love, and for love. You know, we're spiritual beings having this human experience. And by the way, you know, we're here by our own choosing, and we came with a purpose, right? And we're all here by choice, and there's something that we wanted to accomplish. And if you go to the website, it's timetoremember.org, which is a nonprofit that I set up to help convey some of the messages from the film. The very last line on that homepage is, isn't it time we got on with it? Because a lot of us are spending a lot of time on other things that don't really matter, especially when it comes to our soul's plan. So it's been a journey. This is really, first of all, I thought I would be lucky if I got 10 people to come on camera and interview with me. And I had no idea what I was going to do with it when it was done. Now it's over 60 people. It's 2 years in the making. Some of the biggest names in the near-death experience world and all of that are involved. People came, from all over the country, from Canada, from Europe, at their own expense, to sit in my living room to be part of this. Right? I could have never imagined that. That's been the best part. Is meeting all you guys. Is experiencing everybody and their truth and getting to know them as people, and the thing I'll say, the last thing I'll say about all that is, a lot of these people are publicly sharing their stories, and many of them have suffered, attacks and ridicule, and they've been marginalized, and they've been debunked, and they're still out there telling their story, right? And I can tell you this, most of them are not getting rich off of this. Right. And there's a lot of unsavory stuff that's come their way, and they're still out there telling their story because they want to help humanity. They want to help people. And you asked me why I'm doing this. And all I can say is my hope is that this helps to transform some people's idea about who we are, about what we are, and about why we're here. And ultimately alleviate some of the suffering in the world, because I think a lot of the suffering that we experience comes from not knowing who and what we really are. If we are these physical bodies that have a limited lifespan, right, and that we have to fight with other bodies over resources and all the other stuff that seems to be happening, then this world kind of makes sense. It's not very pretty. It's not very pleasant. There's a lot of pain and suffering, and at times it's brutal, but it kind of makes sense. But what if that's not who we are? What if that's not really what's going on here? What if there's something much bigger happening?
So what is the secret to remembering who we really are?
Well, you got to watch the film. I'm not going to tell you that. Okay. That's the last question.
And I want to know if your brother came through and said to you, "Dang, Peter, you were right."
Well, I feel that. He's come through a bunch of times now, and to my siblings as well, and he's on board. He kind of laughs at himself over all that, but he's definitely on board with this.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Sylvia, in Every Soul Knows, you and your mother tell a mesmerizing true story about a miracle that surrounded your birth. Could you share it with us?
Sure. When I was born, first off, my mom had a very difficult pregnancy. She had what's called a toxic pregnancy, which happens when there's two explanations for that. I'll give you the physical and then the spiritual one. So the physical one is that type of pregnancy mostly happens in third world countries where mothers have very little access to prenatal care and nutrition, and therefore the fetus does not form correctly, especially around the abdominal cavity, which is where I was compromised, and I had a veritable hole in my abdominal cavity. It didn't close, so all those organs were exposed and only covered by a sheath of membrane, like an amniotic sac. Wow. Then secondly, the spiritual explanation is that when a child, and this I only read in the last couple years, they say that when a soul that comes that is a high frequency soul to a mother that is not a frequency match, that can take a toll on the mother. And the pregnancy is more than likely is aborted on its own. And so that could explain a lot of why some pregnancies take place and do not go to full term. And so anyway, my mother had a toxic pregnancy. She had lost like 20 something pounds with pregnancy with me. And then unbeknownst to her, she had a kidney infection. And the kidney infection was what precipitated my premature birth at almost 7 months. So when I was born, not only was I born with this gaping hole in my middle, but I was born almost 7 months, which made me very premature. And there was a doctor by Michelle Gilbert who has since passed, and he performed life-saving surgery on me and excised probably about 70% of my small intestines and reconnected it because some of the intestinal tissue was exposed to air. And the thought process was that they didn't want that intestine that was exposed to catch any infections or get infected and then have it unfortunately cause more problems and necrotize and who knows what. So they cut 75% of my intestinal tissue, reconnected it, pushed it in, sewed me up. My mother stayed at the hospital where she gave birth, and my life was saved at Jackson Memorial. Unbeknownst to my mother, in that era, there was no cell phones. There was no way of quickly communicating with anyone. None of the nurses knew what my status was. I don't think the doctors knew what my status was, but my family members were redirected to go to see me at that hospital. So no one was hardly visiting my mom except for her own mother. So my mother was alone in this very private room. My parents were recent refugees from Cuba, escaping communism. And so needless to say, they were a young married couple, no money, no nothing. And so my mom thought she was in this private room as a consolation because her child had died, and she was crying, really crying. And in that moment, a nurse walked in, and this nurse was described as tall, blonde. She had a little pillbox hat. She had a long nurse's uniform almost to her ankles, and she had a little shawl of some sort. It didn't belong in that time era. I was born in the 60s. So that was just not really something fashionable, let's just say, at the time. And so she sat with my mom. She spoke to her, and to my mom's recollection, she describes this woman as very kind. And she said she tried to comfort her and tell her that her baby, because they didn't know if I was a boy or girl, was going to be fine, and that all she needed to do was have faith and pray. And she spoke to my mom, and my mother took down her name. And before she left, she handed my mom a rosary, and my mom took it, and it comforted her, and she was praying. She said goodbye. And when my mom recovered from the kidney infection, she went looking for this nurse, and she couldn't be found. And both my mother and her mother, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, went looking for this nurse all over the hospital, in each nurse's station on every floor. And this woman could not be found. And years later, my mother would have a reading that the woman told her, you have a child that was not meant for this world, and she's here to do God's work because God needs her here. And my mother had already experienced some weird things with me as a child. I would see people in their first house apartment that they had, and I would describe this man that would be in my room and be in the apartment. And my mom was she didn't like it. She was very scared. And I would say things throughout my childhood to the point that she prohibited me from talking about it because it scared her. And, dinner parties were another fun event for everybody involved because I would come to people and say, oh, I'm playing with your baby and this and that. And they had no baby, and lo and behold, come to find that the person in question had lost a child to that degree. And I didn't know anything. And my mom just said, you're not allowed to talk to anybody that comes, to have a dinner party at my house. So I learned how to suppress that. But yeah, that was a very incredible event. Many years later, I would have a reading in my 20s, and there was a psychic artist that painted your past lives on on canvas, and she used like chalk on felt. And she, would start by praying with you, and then she would get on with the business of painting all these past lives, these faces. And she turned to me when she was done and she says, I don't get this often. And I thought to myself, my goodness, like, what is she going to say? Like, I almost knew, what she was going to say. And she said to me, well, you're a walk-in. And I said, what is a walk-in? I had no idea what those terms meant. And she says, well, the soul that was in your mother's womb decided to exit because that body was going to pass on. And your soul came in with a purpose to help humanity and elevate humanity in a very critical time on this planet. And this is what you're here to do. And at the time, I was not on this journey. I was studying for my master's degree. I was at the point of almost finishing up my master's degree, and no way did I want. This had been told to me for quite some time by readers, and I was like, no way. My plan was to be a psychologist, a child psychologist, a school psychologist in the school system, and then kind of like segue that into like, child psychology somewhere along the line and have my own practice. But I still have my own practice. It's just not.
And now psychologists consult with you. So
Yeah,
it's come
correct.
full circle, right?
So I met Peter through you, and Peter contacted me to shoot the documentary. And it was a wonderful, really wonderful experience. My mother cried, and I've never seen, Peter, I have to tell you, my mother has never cried talking about that. And all of a sudden, like, she was there, and it caught me by surprise. I really didn't even know how to handle it. Because
that's the clip we're gonna see today. So
and we're going to show that clip so everyone has something great to look forward to.
It was a beautiful experience to be interviewed, and you really pulled a lot out of information and reactions that I was unprepared for, to be quite honest with you.
that happened a lot actually with people who hadn't told their story. It's such a gift, this whole thing. You guys were great. You came in for your own interview first, right? And then you told me that story, and I thought that the wheels were turning in my head, and I thought, oh, we got to get Silvia's mom in here and tell that story. Because originally you were just answering those questions that everybody else was answering, and then I thought, no, this is going to be really good. We got to get Silvia's mom in here. So, and it worked out. Right. She happened to be in town for something, and it all worked out.
Like I said, when my mom came into the interview, and I didn't even know how to react. You could see it. Just like, what is happening? Truly, a transformative day for me. And the whole experience was really beautiful.
You guys touched a lot of people. A lot of people have commented on that.
So we want to give everyone in our audience this delicious appetizer to this wonderful documentary. And I'm going to present a few of these questions to Seta, Silvia, and Karen to have everyone learn some of what they will glean from watching Every Soul Knows. But first, I have two questions for each of you to answer. First, Karen, then Seta, then Silvia. Karen, what is the soul?
Wow, that's a big one. I do have to backtrack a little bit. I was a spiritual seeker my whole life. I was a very weird little child. My mother would look for me, and I'd be in church. I'd be saying the rosary. I read the Bible cover to cover. And then about 25 years ago, I was going through a difficult time in my life, and I just yelled at God. And I asked, am I going to be okay? Something was happening. And with that, I saw a light that came towards me from the other side of the room. And as it was coming towards me, I said, if you're not of God, please leave. Now I know 25 years later, we're all of God. God is part of who we are. But what I meant was, if you're not of the light, of love, and so forth, please leave. But it continued to come towards me and eventually enveloped me. And at that time, I heard an audible voice that said, Luce Lucina, Bella Luce Lucina. And for those Italian listeners, it means light light, beautiful little light. I'll do this very briefly because we all have to answer questions. I've since learned it was St. Francis of Assisi, who's been guiding and protecting me ever since. And after that experience, it wasn't conceptually, it was experientially about the things that I know now. So what is the soul? The soul is who we really are. This physical body isn't who we are. The energy of who we are continues after the physical body dies. And it doesn't begin and it doesn't end. I mean, you are partly divine. You're love and light. Everything that Peter said. I was going to say the same thing. We're love and light, divine beings. And we can create miracles in our lives if we remembered who we were. We are.
And what does the soul want? What does each of our souls want us to know?
Wow. Our souls want us to know that we are one with everyone and everything. And that it includes every person, every animal, all of nature, angels, deceased loved ones, those on other planets, and so forth. We are all one. We don't know this information for the most part. We conceptually know it. We understand that. But after we leave the physical body, we will know it in an instant. We will feel that oneness with everyone and everything and our oneness with God.
Beautiful. Thank you, Karen. Seta, same questions for you. And would you like to tell us a little bit about your awakening?
You know, the soul I see and I hear as well. And it wasn't always that way. But as I actually began on my journey to help find solutions to heal my children who were vaccine injured, I went to many, many healers and studied homeopathy, didn't try to find solutions. And I had an innate understanding of what was happening. I could feel it, I could see it, and I understood that my children were my vehicle towards my journey of growth. And as I would help them, I would learn to help myself and then share that gift with others. And so for me, the soul is the aspect of God that lives within each of us. And it is the spark of God that gives the essence of life to us all. And God is love. So the soul is love. And I believe that this movie is going to be very instrumental in bringing awareness to the soul. That is what I felt when I was sitting in that preview and listening to everybody's stories. I said, oh my God, everybody's soul is just so joyful because we're getting attention. And I feel sometimes that, you know, the soul is starved in this world because it's so easy to focus on the body or the mind or educating, you know, ourselves in different ways, but not necessarily our spiritual growth. And so I feel that the soul is love, and the soul is what gives us personality. And there's continuity in the soul. So we are here to evolve and to grow, to serve God, to be instruments of enlightenment and service, and to be loving and kind to ourselves as well as others.
You know, briefly, Seta, could you just explain for everyone what is that 3D to 4D to 5D that we're talking about?
So for me, that is about frequency of light, activating light codes. We all have DNA, and we vibrate at different frequencies. So the more love we have within us, the more we are in alignment with source, the higher the vibration. And as we develop awareness, our consciousness develops, and therefore we will ascend in that hierarchy of dimension.
And they say, and it is said now that our planet is
Yes.
rising in vibration also, right?
Yes. So this is what this movie is going to do, right? The minute we develop an awareness and a consciousness, we have an opportunity to embrace divine consciousness. And the more we do so, the more elevated we become. And that is the purpose for our ascension, because we're here to evolve.
Yes.
You know, our soul is what is directing our entire life's journey and this quest that we have. And so often people forget that we're here for our soul's evolution. You know, it's not about the money that we have in the bank. It's not about our physical appearance. It's not about the mundane aspects of our lives. It's how are we evolving on the soul level, and how much are we in alignment, and how are we serving God? And because we have a life's purpose and we have a divine inheritance, and God has given each of us a toolbox so that we can fulfill our life's purpose and our soul's mission.
Beautiful. Silvia, what would you like to tell us about What is the soul and what it wants us to know?
To me, the soul is pure frequency and light. It is birthed by God. It is here to evolve, to learn, to experience, and to enact, put into action that which we learn, which is observable by God. And how I found that out was post 9/11, and I was reading people at the time. And
that must have been amazing.
It was very difficult for me, to be honest with you. I went into a depression personally over it. It was too much for me. I had probably been in practice for maybe 4 or 5 years at best at that point. And I was ill prepared for the onslaught of the readings that I would, conduct for families, for individuals that I did, mediumship readings for, and also support groups that I was invited to help people and provide messages. And I just sat back one day and I said, I just can't take it anymore, because I really don't understand this God. And I'll put it to you how I felt at the moment. This God who just seemingly doesn't care about what's going on with the world and all the death. And then I started to think, since the beginning of time, we've had wars, we've had famine, we'd have genocides, etc., and plagues and such. And I got really down to the brass tacks with God. And I said, I just don't understand this. And I'm going to quit, because I just can't take this. You seemingly are very discompassionate to the plight of humanity, and I'm going to quit. And I was at the time ruminating this for some months, and I was in a coffee shop with a girlfriend on a Sunday, and there was the din and everybody talking around us, and music piped through, and there was 2 high school kids behind the counter, a girl and a guy, and the girl was adorable. She had like blonde hair, sun-kissed skin. She was beautiful. And I was on and on about my beef with God at the moment, and I was very angry. And I said, you know what? That's it. I'm quitting. I'm just quitting. And something in me said, don't say that, Silvia. Don't do it. And I said, okay, unless God reveals to me right now that he has a grand plan, and that I and other people like me and humanity are part of this plan to save humanity. But he has to tell me now, not 8 minutes from now, not 8 days, not 8 weeks, not in my dreams. I said now, and I hit the table, and it was one of those rickety tables, and went bang, and it shook. And right at that very second, the girl behind the counter started, Jesus is Lord, as loud as she could. Jesus is King. And I was speechless. I was stunned. And I went like this on the table. I said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I go, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll listen to you. I said, but we gotta devise something here. So you have to speak to me personally. I'm open. I said, but you have to speak to me as to why this has occurred, and why has humanity been led down this pathway. So I started afterwards I had 2 Dobermans at the time, and I would walk one Doberman in the morning, one at night, because it was too much to walk the 2 of them. So I would talk to God all the while. And at first there was nothing. There was just, okay, I'm ready. Talk to me. And several weeks passed, and finally this voice came through. And the only thing I could tell you is the voice was piercing. The voice was authoritative, but the voice was loving, beyond any of those two. And the voice said, this is the only way. Because I was asking, how come this is so, this has gotten to this situation? And he said, the voice said, this is the only observable way that I know what you do with my relationship with you. You have free will. And this is the only reason I can observe in real time if you are using your free will to know me and to get close to me. I said, okay, I get that. I said, but we're here, and I can't do this suffering anymore. I'll be honest with you. And the voice said, there will come a day when those who have done great evil to my planet and to my children will fall. And my children will rise up to inherit the earth as it was meant to be. And in the meantime, I will be protecting all. And I'm telling you, the download that I got was, we are pure energy. We are here by free will to evolve and to express divine love, divine brotherhood and sisterhood to all. And the 3D, 4D, 5D, 3D is when, we live in a state of consciousness that is good or bad, very materialistic, very grounded in the work and,
the doing.
We don't understand that we're all connected. And then the bridge to that 5D is the 4D, where you're still living in the 3D, but you have consciousness and awareness that we are all connected. But there's a little bit of that good or bad, but that we are all connected. And then the 5D is everything is integrated and we are all one. There is no good. There is no bad. There is no evil. There is no good. There is all, we are one, and it all serves to evolve. All of us are evolving. And that is the one mandate that is divine, is evolution. And that is what I've understood. So, yep.
And Peter is helping that along with this documentary. He certainly is.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
So Seta, Peter said, asked these amazing questions of each of us. And I want to give everyone a little taste, just a taste of what they're going to learn in the documentary. So I'm going to start with these questions for you. What is the purpose of life on the physical plane?
Well, as we've stated before, it definitely is our evolution. But there are certain mandates as well. And I was told that the very first mandate is unconditional love, that the person should really learn how to love and accept themselves. And if you think about the law of attraction, right? Whatever emanates from us is what we receive. If you don't love yourself, how can you possibly receive love? And the degree to which you love yourself denotes how much love you can receive. And because God lives within us, because we have a soul, we are inherently worthy of love. And God is love. And therefore, unconditional love should be something that we all experience internally, mentally, physically, emotionally, psychically, on every level.
Wonderful. And do we have soul groups that we incarnate with across different lifetimes?
Yes, we do. I actually find that, we come in groups, we incarnate with family groups together. And many times our roles are intertwined from lifetime to lifetime. And we have this, I'm going to really explain something to you that I saw visually that I thought was just so telling for me. It was my aunt's funeral. And as I saw her soul, she was just elated, actually, to be surrounded by all these loved ones. And there was an entire community seemingly to greet her and to welcome her to the other side. And then I saw all of these souls in one straight line extending to the side. Like it wasn't circular. And I asked Spirit, I'm like, who are these souls? And they said, well, this is her direct soul lineage. And I said, well, why does it stop at 6 souls? Because they said she is the reincarnation of that 7th soul in her lineage. And so it really gave such a telling response as to how intertwined we are in this way. And I think that we have very specific purposes for which we incarnate. Sometimes we have soul classrooms that we come together. For example, we might not be family, but we are a part of a soul classroom where we consciously have come together and have met each other in this lifetime for a purpose. First, to carry out the will of God, to enlighten, to illuminate, and help us along our journey towards our evolution as well. In the evolution of life, I know that I was told that we have to create balance in our lives. That balance is a very, very important goal. We also, all of us, have to learn how to master a gift and then share that gift with others. So we have to really adhere to that inner divine calling. We have to spend time within ourselves and to listen to our souls. So often we don't heed the voice of the soul. You know, it's the mind or the body that takes precedence. So part of our life's purpose is to understand that the soul has to govern this vessel, and the soul must be in alignment with Source so that we can advance and evolve and be instruments in service to God.
But why do we forget then, Seta? Because we don't come in with this knowledge that you're talking about. We're all discovering it fresh within our bodies.
Yes, that veil is definitely, well, there are many purposes and reasons why, actually. So imagine if you're incarnated and you remember that in your previous lifetime that your father was your son or your grandmother was your sister. I think there would be so much confusion as to the roles that we play. And we would need to really understand that in our identity in this lifetime, we have to be who we are because we have maybe a karmic debt we have to play out, or we have a relationship, we have contracts between souls that have to that serve a purpose towards our evolution. And perhaps we have to learn how to forgive. Perhaps we have to have more faith than fear. There are so many lessons that we have to learn. And in fact, that's part of the reason why we have the veil of forgetting, because oftentimes I see that people carry forward crystallized negative belief systems from lifetime to lifetime. And if we didn't have that veil of forgetting, we would really feel defeated because we will have remembered that, oh my God, I was supposed to evolve and I failed now for the 10th lifetime in a row. And so we don't want to recall our failures. We want that slate to be wiped clean so we can begin again. And also it serves to underline, helps us forget that this is an illusion. This is a classroom. We're here to evolve. If we remember every single thing, then perhaps we might choose to not partake and say, you know what, I don't want a part of this. I'm going to wait until the next lifetime. This is too hard. So the veil of forgetting helps in so many instances so that we can really be clear as to what our identity is and really have a fresh start to begin anew in our evolution and in overcoming our crystallized negative belief systems and also paying our karmic debts.
It's so great to know about. Silvia, do spirit guides or angels assist us during a given lifetime? You had
100%.
an experience with a few angels, I know.
100%. Seta mentioned tools that are at our disposal. We come with talents, but aside from that, we come with what I call a rescue squad, a spiritual squad that is our spiritual family. We have a physical family that we're physically born into. And then we have this spiritual family who we've known from before we were born. And we sign a contract. And in that contract, we have lessons and classes like, oh, you're going to sign up for the class of poverty. You're going to sign up for the class of abuse and forgiveness. You're going to sign up for the class of illness and things of this nature. And these are purposeful classes that teach your soul it might be very difficult for you. But we have extremely incredible and loving guides and angels that are always there and are ready for, to step in at any moment in time if it is allowable, because sometimes it is not, because we must figure sometimes we have to work out the issues ourselves, because it is for our soul's benefit that we do. But they are there to help us along the way and even give us a helping hand in doing so. And, I have felt their presence many a time. And somebody said here that they yelled at God. Karen, you had mentioned that before. And I have too, because we have limited perception, especially when it comes to our own stuff and our own messages and our own challenges. And I've been, I've yelled at God a few times, as you can tell. I have a very personal relationship with God. He knows me. He knows I have a little bit of a temper sometimes, and more so in the past than now. But certainly I've gotten very, very amazing experiences and assistance in my own journey to conquer very difficult times in my life, where I have felt very much alone and in struggling with my own, issues. But they are all around. They have shown me this time and time again in almost every single reading. I would say a multitude of readings that I've done over the last close to 30 years. And it is comforting for me. I almost at this point take it for granted that I'm always in contact with them and they are in contact with me. All I have to do is tune in, have either vision or knowing that things are going to be resolved one way or another. And as I moved more into because I don't believe I'm in complete 5D, but as I move more into that 5D, there's more of that knowing. There's more of that peace that you receive innately, that we are all being taken care of. This life is so temporary. It is a grain of sand in a whole beach.
That is so true.
Of eternity. And the eternal is really where we belong, where we come from, where we originate from.
Tone.
And this is a very short sojourn into the physical, where we put into practice what we already know on the other side. But it's like a practicum class. It's like a lab. We're here in the lab. We're here to practice what we all know. And to me, that is the ultimate challenge. It is such a beautiful way to do it. And it's so hard for all of us, even if we're spiritual. It is still hard, because we are going to be individually challenged in ways that bring out the most exalted parts of ourselves that we are capable of. And yet we don't know that we're capable of such, understandings and feats. And we're challenged on that very thing. If you're already spiritual, well, get ready to be more spiritual. If you weren't, well, get ready to be,
Right.
And it just is fascinating to me how we all are on such different journeys, but we're all accomplishing the same thing at different levels of it.
Right. So, Silvia, let me ask you 2 other questions. Do souls return to visit loved ones here on Earth? And could you explain to everybody about the contracts, which Peter asks all of us? Are there contracts or agreements between souls?
Sure.
You mentioned that.
Sure.
And you've also talked about karma. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Karma is an agreement with other souls that you will go through certain situations that challenge you, that challenge the relationship. And it is supposed to, again, bring about a greater understanding through love, really. I can tell you that I've experienced that firsthand through an abusive relationship that I had with a previous partner. And it was very abusive, and I did not speak to this person for 5-6 years, and showed up at my doorstep 2 weeks before Christmas in 22. And I was not happy that he hadn't shown up at my doorstep unannounced. And there was a voice inside of me that said, let him in. And I opened up the door, and he came in, and I instantly knew that he was not long for this world. He passed right in front of me in my hallway towards my kitchen, and I knew exactly why he was there. And we spoke, we forgave, and all I could tell you is that I was transformed, and he was transformed by the 6 months that we were in communication, and we came to a great, beautiful place of love and understanding and appreciation for one another. And he passed on unexpectedly.
So maybe the two of you had a contract.
That was a key example of a karmic contract right there, because I had ended the relationship due to abuse, verbal and otherwise, physical, that I could not tolerate. I could not be a part of it. And it's supposed to bring out love and forgiveness. You forgive. And when you forgive, you release yourself. You gain greater clarity. You are filled with the Holy Spirit and love, and just God's love internally. And it gives you, I can't even describe to you, it just gives you a serene peace within, that if you can forgive a person that has been this way, Christ, I'm brought up Christian and Catholic. So if Christ could forgive all those that crucified him, well, I surely can forgive that one individual that did me wrong. And he was sorry. So why not?
It sounded like a perfect thing to do before his passing.
Yes. And we spoke a lot. We spoke about probably every weekend. And, we reminisced, we forgave, we caught each other up on things, and we were friends, and that was the singular most transformative relationship I've had in my life recently. And this happened, we reconnected in 22, he passed in 23, the spring of 23. And that has been the most transformative, next to my dad, who passed away in 23 also.
Well, go ahead.
And that was, a beautiful ending and spiritual beginning of our relationship, which was wonderful. Wonderful. I see him with me. I feel him with me all around, all the time. Well, not all the time, but a lot of the time. And, it's just I am in awe sometimes of how my life has been transformed by just the events that have caused me great heartache, that now, I'm released. So,
I'm going to ask Peter later on in the interview about forgiveness, because it feels like a lot of what you're talking about is about forgiveness, and which is something that we're all here to learn to do, I think. So let me move. Is there anything else you want to add? And then I will have a question for Karen.
Well, our souls are here to learn, to grow, to forgive, to be challenged, to fail. There's learning in failure. You understand? This is not all about getting the A+ and there's learning in failure, because it's human to fail and to err, and divine to forgive and to learn and to grow and to evolve. That is the end game, and there is no end game. There is an eternal game, if I were to describe it that way.
Because everything is a continuation. It's a continuation.
There's a perpetual renewal of life continually evolution. And they've come to me from the other side. Yes, they help us. Relatives help us. Mothers and fathers help us on the other side. Grandparents help us. They all are part of a team that each individual has at their disposal. And often we get so blindsided with the fact that we live in a 3D world. And we're sitting in our kitchens, in our offices, in our cars, and in our living rooms. And we absolutely have no idea that Dad is right here.
And they are trying to help us. Absolutely.
Yes.
So true. Yes, they are.
Yes.
And they do come and they do visit us.
Yeah, they
here.
do.
They do.
Whether you remember it or not, because I've had readings where the parent will come, or someone, mostly the parent will come to me, or a spouse will come to me and say, I'm watching over her at night and I'm inserting myself in her dreams through her soul consciousness, through her frequency. And they won't remember, but it doesn't matter because there's healing taking place with the soul.
Absolutely true. And speaking of all of that, let's go back to the beginning. I want to ask Karen something. Going back to the very beginning, what, Karen, exactly, which Peter asks in the documentary, he asks every single person in the documentary, what is death?
What is death? Well, there's only death of the physical body. There's no death of who we are, the spirit, our soul. After we leave the physical body, we reemerge into the non-physical, and we join forces with God, the angels, as I said before, our deceased loved ones. The most important thing to know, as Silvia was talking about, is that, our loved ones are trying to speak to us as much as we're trying to speak to them. So to be more aware of when they're speaking to us, everyone is able to connect with their loved ones who've passed. Everyone, of course, everybody could play the piano if you have fingers. Some people could play scales, other people could play great masterpieces, but our loved ones are speaking to us all the time. I would tell those who are listening, there are three major ways that they're speaking to us. One, they speak to us in our thoughts. We expect them to have an audible voice or show us an apparition of who they are, and yeah, they may come that way. But for the most part, when I receive messages, it comes telepathically as a thought that just pops in my head for no reason, And how do you tell the difference between your thoughts and theirs? What you would do if you're thinking about your loved one and it just pops in your head, no rhyme or reason, it just pops in your head, that's probably them speaking to you. If you see a picture of your grandma and then a thought comes after that and then another, that's you. If that makes sense. They love to give us signs to let us know they're with us. I call them without a doubt signs. A bird pecks at our window, it's their birthday, and they want us to know that they're there. Or you're driving and a car cuts you off in the license plate. I had that with Wayne Dyer right before I had readings with his family. I said, Wayne, you better come through. And as I'm yelling at him, a car cuts me off and it said Dyer 1 on it. Now, how do they do that?
Oh my goodness.
I don't know. But I knew he was going to come, and boy, did he. But ask your loved ones to give you a sign, but then be patient and wait, and the sign will come when you least expect it. The sign will be something that normally doesn't happen. It's not any bird in the sky. It's the bird that maybe lands on you or pecks at your window and so forth. And then the third way that they come to us in dreams, right? So you ask your loved one to come to you in a dream and to wake you up after the dream so you remember it. And then you have to be patient and wait, and the dream will come when you least expect it. How do you tell the difference between a real visitation and a dream from your subconscious? It's a biggie. A real visitation will feel amazing. It'll feel, the older person will come back younger. They will feel amazing. You wake up like, I dreamt of my mother many times, and I wake up and I feel like I've won the lottery. A dream from your subconscious, on the other hand, would maybe be frightening, how they died, they're mad at you, and so forth. That is not them. That is you trying to resolve issues you had with them. So no, there's no death, and they're trying to communicate with us as much as we're trying to communicate with them.
Yeah, and we've heard a lot, and Peter poses this question also, that we get a life review after we transition. Could you describe what that life review is like, Karen, and what is its purpose? Every single one of us will get a life review.
Absolutely. After we leave the physical body, we are able to see and feel how we've affected everyone and everything through each person's eyes, through each animal's eyes. You could feel it as if it's your own. And the reason is because after you leave the physical body, you feel your oneness with everyone and everything. So you are one with your living loved one. You feel that connection. You feel what you did. Too often I hear in readings that a person should have forgiven somebody and now it's too late. They should have asked for forgiveness for something that they did to somebody else, and now it's too late. They should have treated themselves with the respect that they did deserve, and now it's too late. They should have told their loved ones how much they love them, and now it's too late. But the answer is, why do we have to wait until it's too late to go through our life review? We could do it right here and now and create peace in our lives. See through each person's eyes as if you are that other person. You may not understand what they're doing to you, but you'll be able to see it in a different way. And you'll be able to create peace in your life and in all the lives around you as well. Don't wait.
That's great advice for everyone. And people must now be thinking, well, I get a life review and I really screwed up, or I hurt this person. Are we judged or punished for
No.
our mistakes in the afterlife? And what is this life between lives that goes on also?
Oh, that's such a good question, Irene. Oh, no.
Well, Peter posed it.
I know, but you're asking me right now. And Peter, we have to talk about his documentary, is that we're not punished. We judge ourselves. We're like, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. And then you move on. And you're one with everyone and everything. You feel that oneness, that love of God and the angels. It's like when you do something and you're like, I shouldn't have done that. And when somebody's coming through in a reading, they say, I shouldn't have hit you over the head with the mirror. That type of thing. But it's not for eternity that they're experiencing this negative energy. They're one with God and they feel that wonderful energy. They're in heaven.
Right. They don't go into a certain place to be punished forever
No,
or anything like that.
not
There's
at
none of
all.
that there. None
Absolutely. It's a knowingness. It's seeing the bigger perspective, pretty much.
of that. Right. And what about this life between lives? In between our lives, do we choose what we're going to be doing in the next life? What is that about?
We're not forced to come back here on earth. We're not forced to come back in the physical body, but when we are reemerged with our loved ones, we stay there for a while. We're one total light and love and so forth. And we'll say, I think I should learn more about compassion. I'm going to go back and so forth. Some of us here on the panel now, I think we came back to be here at this present time to make the world not to make the world a better place. It's a wonderful place, but to help people. This is a segue, Peter, to remember who they are. Remember who they are.
That's beautiful. And my next question is for you, Peter. In your book titled Be Bigger Than You Think You Are, Overcoming Our Self-Imposed Limits to Have the Life We Want, you emphasize the importance of forgiveness as a crucial step towards personal growth and overcoming self-imposed limitations, which is also mentioned in the documentary. So this must have been very present with you when you were asking everyone this. Why is it essential to our soul growth to let go of past grievances and self-criticism?
Well, I'll give you the very short answer to that, and that is forgiveness frees us, right? It frees us from the past. See, we forgive for ourselves, not for the other person. This is not condoning somebody else's inappropriate behavior. It's not saying what you did doesn't matter or I agree with it. It's saying I'm no longer going to give my energy to that in a negative way, and I'm releasing the past. I'm letting it go. I'm not going to drag that experience into my future, because one of the people in the film says, what we do is when we regurgitate it, we're reliving that experience over and over again, right? And that brings our energy down. That keeps us stuck. What I say, I also did a TEDx talk, and my TEDx talk was about forgiveness. You can forgive somebody and still call the police, right? We can still do whatever we need to do to take care of ourselves in that situation, but we do it from a place of love rather than revenge, trying to get even, trying to hurt the other person. And it ultimately is how we free ourselves from our past. It also is about not taking things personally. And also, what the Course in Miracles says, all attacks are called for love. So if somebody's attacking us, they're actually calling out for our love. Now, again, we never have to put ourselves in harmful situations, right? Our first obligation is always to take care of ourselves. But once we do that, then we can look at other people and situations in a different way. And when we look from that place of love and compassion, it's almost like, I talk about this in my book, we have this realization that if I saw the world the way they see the world, and if I saw myself the way they see themselves, then I would probably be doing the exact same thing they're doing right now, and that makes me the same as them. Now, again, this is not about condoning inappropriate behavior. It's not about giving somebody a pass. We could still hold people accountable and forgive. It's really where we're coming from. If I'm stuck in that place of wanting to get even, feeling hurt, and, how could they do that to me? And how could they say that? I'm giving my power away to the situation, right? And I'm not present to continue to create my life in a functional or happy way.
That makes tremendous sense.
There's a lot more in the book. It's chapter 7. It's the longest chapter in the book, right?
Of course, it's the longest chapter in the book.
I think I'm pretty clear this is part of my soul's lesson or plan in this lifetime, is to work through forgiveness, not take things personally. I said this to my niece many years ago when she was like 8 or 9. She was being bullied in school. And I said, sweetheart, you have to understand, when somebody says something mean to you, they're really talking about themselves. It's not about you, right? In 12-step programs, which I have a lot of experience, we say, hurt people hurt people. So if somebody's hurting another person, they can't really be in a very good place. If somebody has to attack me on Facebook, which is what happened for one of my photos, they can't really be in a very happy place in their life. They really have to take time out of their day to tell me that my photos are photoshopped or whatever they were claiming. And if you watch the TEDx talk, I transformed that whole experience. Somebody attacking me on Facebook, verbally, making a big deal out of what a fraud I am. Eventually, that person not only became a friend, but he became a client.
Wow.
Right? He actually bought one of my pictures, and he turned me on to a company that does souvenirs, right? And I ended up doing a deal with that company, which I never would have done if I had attacked him back, right? And got in the trenches and defended myself. Course in Miracles also says, if I defend myself, I am attacked. And in my defenselessness, my safety lies. Well, I've been studying all this stuff for years, and now I'm confronted with it. Am I going to actually apply this stuff? And when I did, it turned into a whole, completely positive, life-affirming situation instead of a shit show that it could have been by fighting with each other on Facebook over whether or not my photo was photoshopped. So, and every 3 years, I get a check from that souvenir company to use my photos on their refrigerator magnets and on their T-shirts and on their coffee mugs. That would have never happened if I went the old way and got all defensive and fought with this person. Instead, I said, okay, he's calling out for love. This is a call for love. This is a call for help. How can I make it safe enough for him to have a relationship with me? And it turned out he was really just projecting. He was also a photographer and an artist, and he was photoshopping all his images, and he felt so guilty about it that he was projecting that onto me, which is what we do. We project. So read the book, get the book. It's available on Amazon. And, I have now multiple opportunities in my life to apply forgiveness. And when I do it, it's not that we have to forgive. It's not even that we should forgive. But forgiveness is good for us, something that we do for us. It frees us from that negative energy of the grievances and the anger and the hatred and the feeling of powerlessness, right? When we free ourselves from that, and I have to be present and I have to choose that. Nobody's going to do that for me. But when I do choose it, and I don't always choose it, but I choose it more and more, the quality of my life improves as a result. Irene, don't forget, I want to show that clip. So
when would you like to do that? Because I'm about to ask everyone to speak about the documentary, about what touched them and moved them the most about it. Would you like to show your clip now?
Yeah, let's watch the clip and then we can talk about the film.
The Law of One describes spirit guides as entities that assist souls in their journey by providing guidance and support. The Law of One.
Do spirit guides or angels assist us during a given lifetime?
Yes, absolutely. I don't think the divine put us in this world without any support.
When I was back in the Navy, I couldn't even talk about spirit guides or angels. I was sure they didn't exist. And now I can guarantee you, angels are real.
I believe that every single person has a guardian angel that they were born with, but we also all have spirit guides.
You absolutely have people in spirit that are helping you. You may have someone in spirit that guided you to watch this film that you are watching right now, and you didn't even know it.
Spirit guides and angels are with us from like the minute we are born to the minute we pass, and they are around us all the time. It's like a team around us, a spiritual team. So we have angels behind us, we have guides around us that are holding us, assisting us, loving us, and supporting us.
I've had a strong sense that I've been guided, and these guides are basically invisible to me. I don't know them by name. I have never seen them, but they appear in dreams. They seem to keep me out of trouble and give me messages from time to time that have literally changed my life.
So do they assist us? Yes. Nobody, not you, not me, not anyone, would make it in this world without the loving care and assistance of their soul companions and guides and teachers of many lives.
They're waiting there, and they are eager and willing and love to help and support us. We just need to ask.
Spirit guides are really interesting because I've talked to a lot of people about their spirit guides, and some of us, like myself, don't get direct communication from our spirit guides, whereas others might actually even hear them or actually see them in their incarnations. I believe that we meet with our spirit guides at night when we dream. We usually forget that. Many thoughts that we have that we think are our own, I don't believe are our own. They come from our spirit guides, from our ancestors. They stay out of the way. They're not there to live your life for you, but they're there to kind of keep you on the path.
All of us have angels and spirit guides that are guiding us and protecting us throughout our lives. We could ask them to give us signs to let us know that they're with us. And they often come to us as thoughts telepathically. So notice the thoughts that just pop in your head for no reason. That's their way of communicating.
The way they assist you, they're in tune with you through your vibration. So if everything's going well, they can sense that, they can feel that. But if you're in distress of some kind and your vibration plummets, they will feel that. And then they will assist you to the extent that they can, meaning that they can't do anything that would violate your pre-birth intentions, and they can't do anything that would violate your free will as the personality incarnate in that lifetime.
We may not recognize it, but then this guide that you have falls in step. It's called a way shower. And when our energies get low, you will watch, if you have the sight, you will watch that guide fall in step with us to keep the energy going while we're going through the distress or the adversity. And as soon as we begin to recover, it's very interesting to watch. Then they will take a few steps backwards and fall out of step.
So it's just a matter of being receptive and being open to the fact that there are angels around you, there are spirit guides around you 24/7, there always have been, and being open and receptive to receive. Also asking for the help or asking for the messages, and trusting. If you don't trust, forget about it.
Our spirit guides can talk to us in a million different ways. They can talk to us through songs on the radio. It's not always going to be some super in-your-face sign. Every once in a while, you'll see a billboard that will say something that is the exact answer that you need for what you're going through. But generally, it's not that big.
And there is no doubt when they pulled me out of the car and I got that message, be loving and kind to everyone, that was probably a guardian angel, because I'm told that we all have one guardian angel who's really with us through the whole lifetime, and then there are other guardian angels that change depending on our need.
When I had my experience, the first person I met was my soul, was my spirit guide. So I left my body and I went into the void or the tunnel, and there was a person beside me. And this soul, this person, I
No, it's the person I've been talking to my whole life. So lo and behold, in 1991, when I get hit 75 miles an hour, I break my neck and die. And I come up and out of the body and I have this amazing death experience. Guess who is there to greet me? Out of the atmosphere in which I arrived, materialized these two beings. So imagine the preacher's daughter from the South who's been told it's going to be Jesus, it's going to be all my loved ones. Imagine I get there and I'm like, who are you? And in reality, in that first moment, I couldn't remember who they were. And then the penny dropped. The light bulb went on and I was like, oh, these are my guardians. These are my guides. And it was the best homecoming ever. They were my watchdogs, my cheerleaders. They had been with me since day one.
They know our life plan and our life task really well, and they try to keep us on our plan. They're the ones whispering in our ears. A lot of people ignore their inner guidance, even if they think it's their own conscience speaking. A lot of people ignore that. So many of our guides and angels feel underemployed. They're just not getting to do much because their people aren't listening to them. But there's always at least one guide for every person that's available. And if the person opens up to that guidance, it's there.
Silvia Rossi was born with a rare birth defect, and the doctors gave her little chance of survival. A mysterious nurse visited Silvia's mother after the birth, and Silvia eventually went on to live a normal, healthy life.
When I woke up at the hospital that had given birth, I realized that I'm not in a maternity ward. I am somewhere different, that I found out it was a surgical ward. So all I did was cry, and I thought that, actually crying and screaming, and I thought that my daughter had died because I could not figure out, why she was not next to me, why I was not in a maternity ward. While that was happening, a nurse came in my room, and she had the hat that they used, the nurses, and she was all dressed in white, very peaceful person. And she came to my bed and held my hand and told me, everything is going to be fine. Your daughter is going to leave. I'm sorry. I'm going back to remember. And now, and she handed me a rosary, and she said, if you have to pray this every day, and I know that your daughter is going to live. She looked totally different from the other nurses in the hospital. She didn't look the rest. And also something very interesting is that I never saw her again. It was only one time. What is interesting about all of this, and I know that this had to be an angel, is that when I felt better and I was ready to leave the hospital, I wanted to return that rosary to the lady that had given it. So I still was in bed, but my mother went to the nursing station and they told her that no one had ever worked there with that description that I was giving. Furthermore, she went down, to the personnel office and she asked whether there was someone, that resembled the person that had been in my room, and they told her no. And I asked the doctor when he came in, he says, I don't know which nurse you're talking about. I have never met her. Well, when I was ready to leave the hospital, I knew that something very special, and I have experienced something that definitely was incredible in my life. I felt blessed because I started getting news that my daughter was getting better. And I left the hospital and I kept the rosary because, as I said before, no one knew who this lady was. I prayed the rosary every night. And Silvia, after 3 months, came out of the hospital, and all the nurses said, she was a miracle. Everybody everybody thought that she was a miracle, including the doctor. He said, I didn't have any hopes, but look at her. The doctor that operated on my daughter told me later on that she was the first baby with that condition that they have been able to save their life.
So after I left the hospital, I made a full recovery. And this was quite the miracle for the time. And I, from that point on, would lead a normal life. In my late 20s, I was getting more and more into the metaphysical world and learning and reading books. And I had learned about this psychic artist, and I went to the session, and she prayed before and then went about the business of making a piece of art. And she finished, and then afterwards kind of returned to me and said, when I was born, that my soul decided to come in and inhabit that body because that body was not going to survive, but that there was an angel who came to not only me, but my family, who intervened on my behalf and helped in the process of my healing. She said that it was the strength of that angel that helped me survive. By any account, it sounds to me, and I do believe that it was a legitimate miracle.
That is so wonderful. And I'm really glad we gave everyone a chance to see a small part, very small part of the documentary. And since we ended it with you, Silvia, what has touched you and moved you the most about Every Soul Knows? How do you think the documentary will help to raise consciousness on our planet? And what would you like our audience to know about your upcoming events through 2025?
Well, I think it is helping to raise consciousness currently just by existing, number one, because it's a frequency in of its own. So the fact that it's out there, I think vibrationally it does something to the entire planet and to anyone that comes into view and contact with Peter, any one of us, and the movie itself. And I think it's going to be very transformational for people. I think that those that are in the spiritual community are, our frequency is being raised by it. We're connecting with one another, like on this podcast, as well as those that are not familiar. And there was a couple of guests that I brought to the premiere, the preview that we had, that we all attended in East Rutherford, and they were moved by the entire movie. I think it was very thought-provoking. I think it speaks to the soul, and truly, it just does. Everything speaks to the soul, but this speaks directly to the soul. And I truly see we are living in extraordinary times right now. The planet itself is evolving. If anybody knows anything about the Schumann resonance, please look it up. And I entreat your viewers to do so. The Schumann resonance measures the electromagnetic frequency and current and pulsations of the earth. And the Schumann resonance was discovered back in the 1800s and rediscovered in the late 1960s and named after Schumann, gentleman who developed an apparatus to measure the electromagnetic current that is pulsating out of the planet and is caught in between the planet surface and the ionosphere. And what was maybe 2 or 3 spikes in a year has become every day, almost hourly. There are spikes happening now, and that is affecting our vibration, our frequency. We are breathing in that frequency. We are electromagnetic. Our soul is an electromagnetic current that it can't be housed anywhere. It's temporarily anchored in our brain, and it then flows down our spinal column. That is why when we get truth chills or spooky chills or whatever, it registers in your brain and fans out like a tree onto your arms and your legs and everything. And you get the goosebumps. Those goosebumps are electrical current. That is why your brain is an bioelectrical organ. And it is sending continuous signals to every single cell in your body and space, which is your soul within you. And it is keeping you alive, but it radiates outside of you into these other dimensions. That heaven, as we spoke before, is all around us. It's just on a different dimension. Because when our souls no longer are in our body and it can no longer support life in the material body, we then disconnect and our souls automatically raise its frequency to its normal frequency, which is divine and godly. And we automatically are transported through that tunnel and rebirthed into the next and eternal life. So this is going to open up that window of consciousness that people can identify. There's so many questions that people have. Everyday people to spiritual people to, almost spiritual people, wherever stage of development you're on. I think it's so fascinating. And just by it existing alone, it is changing the frequency of the planet. In all honesty, that's how I feel about it.
That's fabulous. Sylvia, is there anything you want our audience to know about comings and goings of Sylvia till the end of this year?
Well, yes. Let me. I just brought that up. I will. Well, besides being available for as you can see, my ADD just made a little airplane out of paper here. But anyway, besides doing private readings for individuals and or groups from my home office or New York office, or virtually or personally, you can find me on www.silviarossi, Rossi.com, as well as on my Facebook and Instagram pages. And publicly, I'll be appearing at several fundraisers and events in the upcoming months. On February 27th, this coming week, I'll be appearing in Sparta for an event called Feel the Love event. It will be in Sparta at 6:30. And people can contact Nicole at 973-271-9478. Sunday, the 30th of March, I'll be appearing at the brunch and fundraising for the Eastern Star in Little Falls, New Jersey. And people can contact Kathy Flanagan at 201-303-2918 for tickets. And Wednesday, the 9th of April, there will be an event in Randolph, New Jersey called Gather Your Tribe event at Pinspiration. And that has limited seating. And you can call 973-607-1558 to get your spot in that very limited, that's a very small group. So that is not like open to a lot of the public. So that one is a really good event if you want more of an individualized, attention. But that's where you'll find me, and you'll find me somewhere in the corner of the universe over here.
And we are grateful for you. Thank you.
And I'm grateful
so much.
For all of you. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. And Peter, thank you so much for featuring me and your and my mom in your beautiful movie. I really have such great faith that it is going to touch a lot of hearts, a lot of lives, a lot of souls. And it's pure light. It really just is pure love and light that I'm so grateful, so honored, and moved, truly moved, just by being with all of you here today. You're such beautiful souls, and You are all doing such wonderful work in your own walks of life. And I'm sincerely honored and privileged to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Heartfelt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sylvia.
God bless each and every one of you. Much love. Much love and light to each and every one of you. I wish I could hug you, but you feel it.
We'll make that happen. We'll have to make that happen. And from Sylvia, I want to go to you, Karen. Same questions. What's touched you and moved you the most about Every Soul Knows? How is this going to help raise consciousness on the planet? And then tell us all about Karen.
Oh my goodness, that's a big one. Well, first of all, Peter, you did such a wonderful job interviewing 60 people, sharing their expertise to help people to remember who they are. I've never seen this before, anything like it. The colors were magnificent in the backgrounds. I was like, oh, when I was in awe when I was watching this. You did an incredible job. This is going to be raising the consciousness of the planet. Each one of those 60 people have a following. So can you imagine that each spread it to their people and their people, spread it to more? It's just amazing. So thank you. It was an amazing job. And what was the other question?
We wondered, you've talked about how it's going to raise consciousness on the planet. What touched you and moved you the most about it, which you've answered. And tell us about Karen. What's going on for you through 2025? Which is so typical of you. That would be the last thing you'd think of to talk about. But talk about yourself, Karen.
I know. There's so many things going on this year. I'm going tomorrow to do a retreat. I'm giving a retreat for a week in Costa Rica. I'm going to be at Kripalu at the end of the year. I'm going to be in Omega for 3 different weekends, sharing about life after death. One is with Raymond Moody. Another one is with Jacob. Peter, you interviewed me with him as well. I'm going to be at Lilydale. Lilydale is where the mediums go for a weekend, sharing about we consciousness with Wayne Dyer and so forth. You can find all that information. Let's talk about his documentary, but my website is KarenNoe.com. That's KarenNoe.com. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Irene. Thank you, everybody.
Such a pleasure.
Karen, I would like to bring the film to Omega, maybe while you're there.
I will tell Brett.
Yeah, let's talk
all the
about
time.
it.
Let's
talk about it. Maybe, one evening after the day, people can come and see the film.
Oh, that would be wonderful. One of those events, me and Jacob and myself are going to be in one of those weekends, and we're both together in your film. Maybe that's
whatever.
the weekend.
Yeah, whatever works. Just let me know.
Okay.
How marvelous. And Seta, same questions to you.
Well, when we were at the preview, I just could feel the light in the room, all of the divine beings. I could feel us, literally each soul being unburdened with this light, and the frequency of everybody was elevated. So I have no doubt that every single viewer is going to heal, not just learn, not just develop awareness, but actually heal, because I could feel it. I could feel the energy moving in me. I come with a number of people. I observed them. And so it was just a beautiful experience. And what a service. We all have a divine calling. And this is what happens when we listen to our divine calling, that inner calling, that intuition, and we take action on it. And this is how we're meant to serve, right? We master a gift. The colors in the movie were amazing. I was enthralled with the colors, just as Karen mentioned. I couldn't help but be excited to observe all of them. Not only the mandalas, but the backgrounds and the voices. Just everything was like a cacophony of sounds and colors that just elevated us. And I think that it is going to be something that everybody's going to have the privilege and honor of viewing. And thank you for your service, Peter.
And what are you doing now until through 2025, Seta? Anything you'd like everyone to know?
Yes. I do have a 3-part series coming up in the spring. It's Live Your Best Life. The first one is on April 30th. It's about worthiness, because I find that people limit themselves tremendously by believing themselves to be unworthy or inadequate, and they put thresholds on their ability to access their divine inheritance. And your divine inheritance is that toolbox that God gave you so that you could actually have every resource necessary for you to fulfill your life's purpose and your soul's mission. And the second part is on May 21st. and it is about being in alignment and empowered to create abundance. If you can think about, a shower head and standing underneath the shower head, I find that many people are off center, and maybe their only potential is 20% or 30% because they're just not beneath that abundance that's pouring, that has the possibility of pouring upon them. So it's really about grounding them in the present so that they can create abundance in the present and being in alignment with source. And then, therefore, we then become empowered to create new possibilities in our life. And the last one on June 25th is about living your best life on the most superlative timeline, trajectory, and life path. So we all have a timeline, and that timeline is the one that will take precedence. But sometimes it's inferior timelines or other people's superimposed timelines that are dictating our lives. Or perhaps we lack detachment and we've taken on other people's burdens. Or we've just, have conflicting timelines. So it's about releasing that which no longer serves us and asking God to co-create the most superlative timeline, trajectory, and life path so we can evolve. Because for me, the soul is a light, and we have to, each of us has a spiritual quest. And part of that spiritual quest is being the highest, the best version of ourselves that we can be. And we have to be one with God, and we have to be in alignment, and we have to remember who we are. And this documentary helps us align with those goals that I find that every single person really has when they incarnate. You can find me at www.ehealings.com, and you can also find me at eHealings with Seta, YouTube, and on Facebook and Instagram. I have many complimentary webinars, many prayers and information accessible to everybody, as well as information on how to register for the upcoming series. I look forward to hearing from all of you. And of course, I'm also available for private appointments. Thank you.
So beautifully said. Thank you, Seta. And Peter, please tell us, now that everyone wants to see this documentary on the planet, at least everyone in the Grief and Rebirth podcast audience certainly does, would you please describe the documentary's path so far, its projected path, and what else would you, from your heart and soul, like our podcast audience to know about Every Soul Knows?
Well, let me start with the last part first and just say, I couldn't have made this film without everybody, including the beautiful people who are here today on this podcast. You guys are the real heroes. You're out on the front line sharing your truth, and all of that. And I'm just so grateful that you all said yes. You guys are my, this is my dream team. And it was just such a beautiful experience working with you guys. And so I just want to thank everybody who made the effort to be involved and to be part of this. The best thing that people can do is go to the website. It's 3 words, everysoulknows.com. And all the updates will be there, where you could see it, when you can see it. I'm still working on it. So this is just a preview that's being shown right now. And I'm not sure exactly when it's going to be finished. I'm hoping by the summer. We'll see. I actually hoped it was going to be done last summer. So this continues to go on. But if you go to the website, you'll see the latest schedule for screenings and all of that. There's also a newsletter that you can sign up for if you give me your email address. I do a monthly or sometimes bi-monthly newsletter updating everybody on what's happening with the film. And, I'm just really grateful that I have the opportunity to be part of this. My hope is that it does bring some hope to people, maybe people who've recently lost a loved one or people who are faced with their own mortality, their own death. Hopefully gives them some comfort, some peace, and gives all of us a different way of looking at ourselves and everybody else that we come into contact with to help make this world a better place. I always say, we can't really understand life until we understand the afterlife. And so this is an opportunity for people to begin to see things differently, hopefully see themselves differently, and understand that we are all children of a loving divine source, a creator, a higher power, whatever you want to call it. And, we have an opportunity to express the love of that source every day to the people in our lives and to ourselves. And so I hope that people will gain a new insight into who and what they really are, and by extension, who and what everybody else really is, to begin to live our lives in a different way.
And I would submit to you, Peter, that when you have that awareness, it truly changes your life. I am a person who has experienced that. And I want to thank you from my heart and my soul, Peter, for creating this groundbreaking, eye-opening documentary, Every Soul Knows, for inviting me to be a part of it. I'm so honored. And to you, Karen, Silvia, and Seta, for helping to enlighten us all as to who we really are on Grief and Rebirth Podcast. There are so many other questions that Peter asked the 60 thought leaders that are fascinating and thought-provoking and can help you appreciate the complexities of the soul and each of our soul's purpose and the manner in which we each contribute to the collective. You do not want to miss this fascinating, remarkable documentary. Many blessings. And thank you so much again and again and again from my heart.
Thank you, Irene.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. And thank you, Peter.
Thanks for tuning in to Grief and Rebirth. Remember, you can dive deeper into everything we've discussed by checking out the show notes and all past episodes at ireneweinberg.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Irene S. Weinberg on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and wherever you love to hang out online. Plus, we're on YouTube, so be sure to subscribe and never miss a video. For those of you listening, you'll find links to my 2 books, Good to the Last Drop and They Serve Bagels in Heaven, in the show notes. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see those books listed right above, so don't miss out. And here comes a special treat. If you sign up for Audible as a first-time user using my link, which you can find in the show notes, you can get They Serve Bagels in Heaven for free. And finally, people often ask me what I read, what I use, and what I recommend for healing and self-care. So I've carefully curated a compilation of those items to share with you. You can head over to kit.co/Grief and Rebirth to check them out. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, many blessings.